All right, guys, welcome back to another edition of 10 Silver Tuesday podcast. I got my man Lonnie with me. We're together a lot, which I like. So Lonnie owns Extreme Automatics.
Yes, I do.
And he's the one that makes Charlie Brown shift. So, yeah.
So nice.
Yeah. Does a great job of that. So now we have 3 years that all work.
It's always a good day when things work, that's for
sure. And so, yeah, he does that for us. He's been our transmission guy for a couple of years now, which is awesome. We built, obviously, a relationship beyond just transmissions and race cars, which I like that. So yeah, but today, I mean, we'll probably get into some automatic transmission stuff. He hates Powerglides, but
I don't hate Powerglides.
But yeah, so all right, to kind of jump into it, what got you into cars? Was your family into cars?
My uncles. When I grew up, my uncles were they had streetcar drag cars, and probably my oldest uncle Bill. He had a '67 Chevelle, and I was just a little kid, and him and Bernie, they all had race cars. So they're street race cars, and I just got into them, and it's like a drug. It's hard, you can't get away from them. So as I got older, I took more interest in it, and just that was it. It was over.
That's cool. So when did you get your first kind of race car? Well, I mean, I guess your first car you probably raced.
16. I was 16 years old, and it was a 73 Buick Regal.
That's tight.
So I just became a
man. You was
Buick
hot on the streets
yes,
there.
Yes, but that was the first car, my first street ride, so to speak, and that was the first one. And then after that, I mean, I've had a lot of Buicks over the years, but all my friends had Mustangs and Camaros and everything, so I just kind of stuck into the Buicks, so. Now I can't get rid of them, so I just love the damn thing. So
yeah, you're really a Buick guy.
I'm really a Buick guy. That's why people tell me it's like they talk about the car now. No, it's not the best race car. It's not the worst race car, but it's the holy grail of if you're a Buick enthusiast, it's the holy grail. So I can't get rid of it. So good car, bad car, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's your Buick.
I'm stuck with it. Absolutely.
That's cool. So all right, so you're 16. You start hot riding stuff. You're getting older, all those things. How did transmissions get into that? Were you just need to learn how to take one apart, or?
No, I actually got hired when I was 18 years old, and I got hired. I worked with General Motors. I got hired at 18. I started there. I was going to college at University of Cincinnati, and I was working there part time, basically sweeping the floor. They had an opening in when Detroit Diesel, Allison used to be owned by General Motors. And so they had an opening in the Allison division. So I took a job with the Allison division of Detroit Diesel, Allison. And that's how I got into automatic transmissions.
Were they still in Norwood at that time? Or
they weren't in Norwood. We actually had worked for GMC Truck and Bus. It was our GMC Truck and Bus. They were actually downtown Cincinnati.
Really?
And so I worked in a depot down there where basically our job was we would diagnose problems with fire trucks. The MT750 was the model that I first started working on. And so they would come in with issues, and me and a guy, his name was Shady Ray, I'll never forget him. We used to diagnose these things, and then we would figure out what the problem actually was, and then we'd send the problem back to engineering, and they'd fix it. Then they'd dispatch everything out to dealers because the line never stopped. Even if there was a problem, they continued manufacturing stuff and putting it out the door, even with the problem. And so they would come up with a repair process. They'd fix it in manufacturing, and then they'd come out with a dealer repair or the repair that needed to be done at the dealer before the trucks ever got delivered, because we were working on medium duty and heavy duty trucks.
Gotcha. So there was a line. There was a line in Cincinnati.
Not in Cincinnati. No. We at that time, Kroger's used to buy 700-800 trucks a year, and so that we had a depot downtown that would actually prepare those trucks to be delivered to Kroger. So they came through there. So
they were already built.
They were already built. They came from where they were built at. And I believe at the time, I want to tell you, it was in Michigan, but yeah, they would come through, and it was GMC Astros was the main one. But we also did fire trucks, and that's all we did. Is they would send us stuff with problems, but they prepared the trucks to be delivered to Kroger's at that time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so and at some point in time, Detroit Diesel was bought out by Allison, and or I'm sorry, Detroit Diesel was bought out by Roger Penske, and then Turbohydromatic absorbed Allison. So I went with Turbohydromatic, and I didn't want to move at the time, so it ended my time at General Motors.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I started with GMC Truck and Bus, and then it just stuck. You know, I started doing other jobs, but I always stuck in the automatic transmissions because everybody thought they're magic. You know, it just
Yeah, I mean, they are magic. Yeah.
you know that there was a bearded lady. If you opened one up, there's a bearded lady popped out, and so
A lot of people still feel like that, Lonnie.
Exactly. So my kids were little, and I started doing them in race cars. I mean, guys with race cars that, oh man, you work on transmissions, and a lot of people don't realize automatic transmissions, they're different for each model and make, but everybody thought because I worked for Allison or Turbohydromatic for a short time that I could work on anything.
You could fix anything.
I could fix anything if it was automatic transmission related. I had the magic wand.
Yeah.
And at the time, my kids were little, and my wife would not allow me to spend any money on racing. Any of the house money was not allowed to be spent on anything outside of our family. So I had to work on automatic transmissions to have money to fund the race car to go drag racing.
Yeah.
So I just started doing it, and that's what I did.
Back in the early days there, when you were young, had your family, you were racing. What kind of racing did you do then?
Buddy, drag racing. That's all I ever had an interest in. That or street racing. Of course, it started street racing, but drag racing really is the only thing I ever had interest in.
Were you racing heads up, or were you bracket racing? Or
no, we started out bracket racing. Started out just jumping in trophy down at Edgewater, and then of course I never was a successful bracket racer, but that's how it started. And then as I got older, I bought our first car was a 1986 Buick T-Type. And so by that time I was going to I've got this all messed up. The first car was a 69 a Buick GS convertible. And so that was a big block Buick, 4-speed. Well, I started going to the Buick Nationals and then racing at the Buick Nationals, club racing, heads up racing, club racing type stuff. And then it evolved into, a 86 T-Type, which I never in a million years would have thought would go faster than my big block 4-speed car, but it was a V6 car. And so then we bought a Grand National, and then 14 cars later.
So back then it was you started out with that big block car.
Yes.
Then you got into the turbo stuff because the Buick. I know a little bit about the Buick Nationals. Right. Because there's a few different classes, but like their top level classes. What was it?
Turbo Street Outlaw would have been for the V6s, and at that time it was GS Street Eliminator.
Okay.
Would have been the top class then. So I ran the one just under GS Street Eliminator with the 4-speed car, and the 4-speed car we'd run 12 O's. It would run 12 O's, but my 86 T-Type that I drove back and forth to work every day and took my kids to Florida to Disney World in would run 1140 with air conditioning. So I gravitated towards the turbo, or towards the Regals, the turbo Regals, Grand National T-Type. And just because they were faster. So I ended up selling the rag top. And again, the wife would not allow me to have a race car. So my daily driver was an 86 T-Type. So that was my driver back and forth to work, and it was also my race car. So the transmission went out on, I remember one particular time, transmission goes out on Friday. I'm out beating the car at Edgewater. It goes out. I have to tow it back to my house, get the transmission out, and have it fixed and back in the car for Monday so I could go to work.
Well, at that time, where were you working at then?
At that time, I was working for Mac. I was a sales rep for Mack Trucks.
Oh, okay.
Or I think it was Worldwide Equipment, but Mack Trucks. So that's pretty much what I had to do. So it was later before I ever actually had a race car.
Yeah.
But it was nothing to tear the car up, and then it had to be fixed. I had no way to get back and forth to work.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's actually not cool when it happens to you, though.
Yeah.
But no, it was a lot of fun. I wouldn't change anything. I had a lot of fun with it.
Well, I think a lot of times too, people miss. I see that a lot in racing now. Is I feel like people's point of entry is different.
Right.
They kind of just want to be fast and just go racing. Where when I talk to people like you that have done it for a long time, most people's entrance was just a street car that they had to drive back and forth to work, and they just they raced it on the weekends, and but like a lot of people would skip that part now. They just want to go race car. Where I think that step is an important thing, and like you said, it was your everything car. My dad was in here a couple weeks ago. And he was talking about his Corvette. It was his everything car. He drove it everywhere.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right, and it just there was no room. We lived at that time. The kids were small. We lived in an apartment, so there was no place for a trailer and a truck and a race car. I had if I worked on the car, I worked on it in my grandparents' driveway. I didn't have a garage to work in, so it just a race car didn't fit my life at that point in time.
Yeah, but a strace car did.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did, and it's just something. Like I said, would I want to do it again? No, but would I take? I definitely wouldn't. I definitely wouldn't take that away because it was an important time. I learned a lot about racing during that period of time.
Yeah.
Especially class racing. When my daily driver had to be a daily driver. It had to have street stuff on it, so it just worked out real good for me at the time.
That's cool.
But I was in the V6s for years.
What was it like? So you kind of talked about your big block, like big block 4-speed car, like that was a cat's pajamas, right?
Yeah. It is.
So what was it like the first time that you like cracked open you're like, I'm gonna buy this turbo V6? What was that like? That first time of like when you got into boost?
It was an eye opener because at that point in time I didn't think there was any way possible a V6 would run with I had a big block 462. I didn't think there was any way possible that this V6 would go this fast.
Yeah.
And so we at that time there was about 5 of us that had them. We went down to Edgewater, and I run 13. I think it was 1370. It was 1370 something with it. Just the way it sat. Cadillac converter, whole 9 yards. No race gas. And so I thought, man, that was pretty good. But then when I put a chip in it and gutted the Cadillac converter and bought a pair of tires for it, at that time they were BFG drag radials. And next thing you know, this car's running mid to low 12s, where my 4-speed car, it was everything I had to run 12.0 with it.
Yeah.
And but it's unbelievable because especially that point in my life, because I didn't think it was even possible.
Yeah. Well, turbos were such. They weren't a new thing, but for the street and drag racers, they were kind of a newish thing.
Oh, absolutely. And then when we started racing it, nobody else believed it either. It was so easy to race those cars back then because the other big block guys were just like me. They weren't any the wiser. And so, they because we were forced induction, they made us run in big block classes, and we would take all the money. We would clean them out because, we would sometimes be a second faster than the big block cars we were racing because they were naturally aspirated and we weren't. We had a turbo.
Yeah.
And so it was for its time, it was probably the sneakiest thing, around because nobody expected them to do as well as they did.
That's cool. So that was really like the 80s?
Yeah, I got the first one in '86. I'm gonna say early '90s, early to mid '90s. I'm gonna say the cat started getting out of the bag sometime. I'm gonna say in the mid to late '90s.
Oh, man.
They were tough cars to beat, especially on the street because they were at the time they were just total sleepers.
So you're racing. You said early '90s, really, right?
Yeah, early. Yeah, the first T-type I bought was a demo, and I bought it in '87, '88.
Okay.
87. I bought it in 87. Then I bought a new Grand National in January of 88. I took delivery of a Grand National and an 87 model in January of 88.
What's some of the difference you see from, if you could take yourself back in time to that moment, what's some of the differences you see in drag racing from then to now?
Man, I think it's probably, if I had to say anything, of course we all know technology changes, but it's the people. The people in drag racing. We were on forums at that point in time. Us car guys would get together and we'd be on a forum versus social media, but it's the people. It seemed to be a little bit more of a passion for people that did it during that time. It's a little bit different than it is now. Social media is just makes it different.
Yeah.
Technology, of course, these days advances much faster. But it seemed to me in those times there was a lot more innovation, a lot more things, more people innovating how to go faster, or figuring something out, and then they would typically share that information with, fellow racers. Even in class, they wouldn't give you every little secret, but one thing that in particular is we had there was a couple years in the class we were racing called Turbo Street Modified. We'd all kind of hit a little bit of a brick wall, and they would develop some new turbos, and the cars weren't really going any faster. And finally, one guy figures out that his intake air charge temperature, that the intercoolers we were using at the time, he figures out his intake air temperature is 200 degrees, and so nobody was looking at intake air temperature. Nobody paid any attention to it. And so he builds an intercooler and gets his intake charge down to around 130. He picks up 3 or 4 tenths. So all of a sudden, in front of the same class that we're racing in, he's 3 tenths faster than anyone in the class, and he shares that information. And it just kind of it's that kind of stuff that I think is different today. If somebody in today's racing was to figure that, I'm not quite so sure they'd share it.
Well, and I think too now, kind of the technology thing. You're not, and you guys were running quarter mile.
Yeah, we're running quarter mile too. Yeah.
I think as fast as we're going in the 8th with everything that's happening, you're not going to pick up numbers like that anymore.
Absolutely not.
It's just not. It's more small gains now.
Yeah, small gains. You're getting down into small numbers, and then. You also have a lot of information on YouTube. So if somebody will go out there, at that point in time, we didn't. Like I said, we were in forums. So if someone didn't share information or you didn't stumble across it, today you can get on YouTube and rebuild about anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even if it's haphazard, you can still do it. So I agree with you 100%. The technology is much better, but I think we're towards the top of some of the performance stuff. So yeah, the numbers that you gain today are like I said, hundreds. So that's probably the major difference, though.
Yeah. Do you? Really, you were on the beginning of electronic fuel injection and stuff. Not that it was the very beginning, but for race cars, you probably were.
Well, a lot of people that don't know, we'll just let them know now. I mean, if you run a turbo or any type of aftermarket fuel injection, buddy, thank the Buick Grand National. That's where it came from.
Yeah.
We used to have Ken Duttweiler. Some people may not know him. I'm an old guy, so I do.
I know who it is.
Yeah, but okay, so Ken Duttweiler, kept the Buicks, the V6s ahead of about everything out there. And then he got in with the Mustang guys, and it changed the entire game because we used to have Buick versus Mustangs, and we won that event every year until Ken Duttweiler jumped the fence and started helping those guys. But I mean that's really a lot of people don't. Some maybe young guys don't know this work. I mean it all came from the Buick Grand National. Excel DFI created the Gen 6. DFI at the time was one of the first engine managements, and what did they develop it for? They developed it for the Buick Grand National. So that was the at that time that was groundbreaking engine management that a guy could tune himself.
Yeah, I mean I think the average enthusiast doesn't know how much the Buick community really in the 80s and 90s especially really gave to hot rodding in general, especially turbo cars. Obviously.
Turbo cars, yeah. I mean it changed everything.
Yeah, I mean, Precision Turbo, one of the biggest turbo people in the world, they did that because of Buicks.
Precision Turbo and engine. And there was a point in time they only made turbos for Buicks. That's all they did, 3-bolt turbos to go on a Buick Grand National.
Yeah.
And built an empire, built an empire off of it.
Yeah, it was cool. Dave Fiskus's car, when it was in the, we put it in the Precision booth and at PRI a couple years ago. And, man, everybody at Precision was really stoked about that.
Yeah.
And I didn't really realize, I knew, but I didn't really realize how much the Buick Grand National meant to those guys.
Right.
And they actually made a T-shirt with Dave's Buick on the back of it. It's a Precision Turbo shirt with Dave's car on there. And I talked to him about that later. I'm like, man, I've never, because you don't really see cars on their shirts that often.
Right.
And they're like, yeah, we're pretty sure that Dave's not going anywhere, and we like Buick Grand Nationals. So,
well, Dave, I've known Dave. I mean, me and Dave used to go down. There was 4 or 5 of us with Buicks. Dave had a Grand National, I had a T-Type at the time, and we all used to go down to Skyline on Beachmont Avenue for the car cruise on Friday night, and then sometimes sneak down to 52 and street race. and so Dave's one of those. Dave also is part of the innovation of the Buick as well because he was willing to go out there and try things that people didn't try. So to all of us, I mean, I think to any of us that's been in the Buick community, it's very important to us because we were there on the ground floor. Some of us had new cars, but we've always had a Buick. I mean, I can never remember a time since I was 16 years old I haven't had one. I have a Grand National now. I just can't be without it. I'll say I'm going to be without it, and I get rid of it. Then I find out I have to go buy another one. Tommy's got 2 or 3 of them. So I mean, it's almost an obsession. But I think to all of us guys, Dave included, I think the Buick community and that car it's been a very important part of our lives.
It's iconic, man. I mean, they're just Buicks they're sweet, man. I mean, they're not.
Yeah, they are, but it's like I said, I can't be without one. So every time I get rid of one, I got to buy another one. So I'm not going to get rid of this one. So
I know I'm trying to not give too much of your background away, but I know that you made a move at some point to a pretty big guy that had a impact on your business later in life, but with the valve bodies and stuff. So you did the stuff early on with GM. Then you did the cat salesman. When did you kind of go to Griner? When did that happen?
Well, it was actually I worked for Mack Trucks for about 7 years, and then a good friend of mine that we decided to open up we had our big 401ks, and we decided we wanted to have our own truck dealership. So we opened up a Western Star dealership in Dry Ridge, Kentucky in 1999. I didn't know you did that. Yes. And
you kind of look good with like a cowboy hat, like with your arm hanging out of the semi.
I can do it. Yeah, I can do it. But we opened up because I was always been in the truck part of the business, never the car side. And we opened up a Western Star dealership in 1999. Well, Western Star was bought out by Freightliner Corporation in 2000. I think it was 2002. So we ended up losing our franchise. So we have to close a dealership. And at that time, I was like, you know what? I was doing the transmission thing the whole time on the side, even when I didn't need to. So I decided that I was going to open up a business in transmissions. And so I done it for about 2 or 3 years. And then I actually met Steve Griner.
Okay. I didn't realize that you built transmissions before.
Yes.
Okay, that was your everyday job.
That was my everyday job. So yeah, in 2002, I think it was January 2002, technically was the first day I worked for myself. And man, I was barely getting by. I mean, it just barely getting by compared to what I made, selling trucks. And but I'd taken a transmission apart one time and it had this beautiful aluminum valve body on it. And so I jump online and try to find this Griner guy because he wasn't real. He was like the best kept secret in the business. And so I found him. He had retired at that point in time. And but I ended up finding him a couple months later. And we struck up a friendship, and he liked me, and we just kind of went on from there. And he started making more, he was retired, but he started making product for me. And then at one point in time, he's like, hey, you need to come over here to Mulberry. So I actually packed up and moved to Mulberry and worked with Steve over there.
What state was that? Was it in Ohio?
It's in Indiana.
Indiana,
Mulberry, Indiana, just outside of Lafayette. And we just got to be good friends. And the crazy part is, and this is a tough one to admit, I thought I was a pretty good transmission builder at the time. We're going back to like 2003-ish. I go over there and I work with Steve, and after I was there about 2 months, I figured out, no, I wasn't really a good transmission builder. I was a hack. And it's a tough one to admit.
Yeah.
But he changed my life and gave me a different way to look at what I was doing. He kind of opened up my vision so I could see it. I wasn't so tunnel. So my vision wasn't so tunnel.
Yeah.
And so I went over and worked with him, and he really helped me turn into what I consider to be a good transmission builder. But it's a tough reality when you think you're good at what you do and you find out that you're really not. And then it takes somebody who is really good at what they do to teach you to be better at what you do.
What was your if you had to pick just one thing that he taught you, what would it be?
Man, cleanliness, you know what I mean? Just, cleanliness. One of the things he taught me is, hey, if you go to the steakhouse to buy a steak, and it comes out and it looks like they drug it across the floor, and they're going to ask you to pay for that. It's not, nobody wants to do that. So presentation, when people pay money for stuff, they want to see nice stuff that they paid for. and they feel better about it. You know what I mean? So that and the other thing that he taught me is that the customer doesn't want to pay a lot of money for a little stack of value. They want a big stack of value for the money that they spend. And that was something I never realized that. You know what I mean? You just don't. I would build a transmission and I'd send it out the door and it looked like you just pulled it out of the car. Now I know all the stuff inside of it was nice, but the customer didn't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's so a lot of little things like that, and just attention to detail that at that point in my life I wasn't paying enough attention to detail. And he always strived to make, if he made a widget today, the widget he would make tomorrow, he always tried to make that widget better than he made it the day before. At that point in my life, I was happy with whatever I made the day before. So, the other thing I learned from him is that to strive to keep your product evolving, always try to strive to make it better. And so it's little things like that some people don't, that some people may not realize mean a lot, but at that point in my life, it meant a lot to me.
Yeah.
And it just helped me think outside the box. But I couldn't thank the old guy enough. I really couldn't, because he was like my grandfather. He really was.
How old was he at that time?
68 when we first met. He was 68. He was 68 years old and had been retired. Well, he says retired, but he was closed for business. But he would still make product for people that was for his really good customers. And then when I moved over there, I started pushing his product, and we started making people that didn't even know he existed aware of it, because he was really in a tightly knit. He probably had maybe, I'm going to say 20 or 30 builders, because he didn't really sell anything to individuals anymore. He was just selling to builders. And, when I was over there, I talked to him to let me, take it public. And so not just on my product, but to sell it to other people. And so it just, in his business, he was retired, but we blew his business up again by doing that. When we started making people aware of the problems with of why his product was better than anything out there, then people wanted it. People want to buy good stuff; they don't want to buy mediocre stuff. And he actually, at one point in time, had gotten so busy building valve bodies. He had told me, he's like, "Man, I wanted to retire. I didn't want."
I didn't want to keep doing this.
I didn't want to keep doing this, but he did. He did up until his last day. But I can't say enough good about him. Like I said, if it wasn't for him, I don't know where I'd be. I don't know exactly what I'd be doing today, to be quite honest.
That's cool.
But it had a big impact on me. And like I said, I just can't say enough good about him. I really can't.
Were you guys building Powerglides back then, or were you primarily building?
No, he hated Powerglides. That's kind of where my Powerglide hate came from.
Gotcha.
I was working on Powerglides, and I was doing 400s too, but I was probably doing more Powerglides and 204Rs than anything. And,
the 204R would be like the Buick.
Buick Grand National. It's a lot of Buick work at that time. Like the Buick community put me in business too, because I did a lot of. There was a point in time, 95% of my business was 204Rs out of Buicks.
Yeah.
And but when I got over there, he started talking about, man, this 400 has so many more possibilities, and I'm still wanting. I'm wanting to gravitate to the easy stuff, and then so he just planted the seed. Hey, let's build the first 2-speed 400 ever. And so we sat down and. But this time he's got my mind open up, so my creativity's coming around. So I come up with the ideas like, man, let's just make a 2-speed valve body. And he thought it was a great idea. So then we designed a 2-speed valve body, and then we built this 2-speed 400. And neither one of us were race cars. So Vern House at the time was terrorizing in 2685 with a red Camaro. So I call Vern House up and say, hey, we've got a transmission that's a 2-speed transmission. Would you take that Powerglide out?
Try this.
Yeah, try this. And Vern, if he thought he could go faster, he would. And so he puts the first 2-speed 400 that any of us knew about in this Camaro, and then goes out and goes on a rain of, just a string of wins, unbelievable, with the first 2-speed 400 ever. And that's kind of where it started.
That's cool.
Yeah, but that's really where it started.
What year would that have been?
2008 maybe, 2007, 2008.
Okay.
Somewhere in that time frame. But he was running it in a big block in like an IROC. I don't know if it was an IROC or not, but like an IROC type Camaro, a 3rd gen.
Yeah.
And with a 2-speed 400 and that natural aspirate, and out there wearing people out that were spraying.
Yeah.
Because nitrous was king, and definitely king in that day.
Yeah, there's a lot of nitrous cars.
A lot of nitrous cars. And but yeah, the first one that we ever that I know of was in Vern House's car, and I'm gonna say right around '08.
Yeah.
Maybe '08, '09, somewhere in there.
Well, somebody that watches this will probably be able to tell us exactly when the first one was.
Vern can. I can tell you, if Vern happens to see it, he'll tell you. But it was a lot of fun because Vern, man, he would go. He raced everywhere. You know what I mean? And it got to the point to where he was winning so much that he would show up and they'd say, you're not allowed to race. You're not welcome here. I was at Edgewater when Edgewater did to him once. We went down to Edgewater, and I went down there to watch him wear everybody out, and they told him at the gate, "You're not welcome."
Jeez.
Yeah, you're not welcome. You're running all our people off, and
you kill the car count.
Exactly. But he'd kill the car count. So they actually told him he wasn't welcome, and he could come in and watch racing if he wanted to, but he wasn't racing.
Yeah, don't unload that car.
But that happened a couple times down there at Edgewater, and then once at Morocco, Indiana. And but like I said, I thank him because he was the first one. I called a couple other people. Man, nobody wanted anything to do with the 2-speed 4. They didn't want us 400 at all. And but Steve helped me realize that there was more places to go with the 400. The Powerglide. There wasn't much. There wasn't any more development in the Powerglide market. There was only so much that could be done with it, and that
and he felt like it had already been done.
He felt like it had already been done. So he was tired of it.
He's right. He was right.
He's right because there's nothing new in the Powerglide market to this day.
Yeah, and there's still. I feel like every week there's something new widget with a 400.
You have to. It's because I like those challenges. I like the challenges where somebody comes and says, man, I want to do this. And then the wheels start turning, you know what I mean? So it's like, like a dump system and then managing charge pressure. And I'm definitely not the first one to do any of that stuff. But, it made me think about different ways to accomplish it. And I thought we've been pretty successful with it. But we're definitely not the first ones to ever do that.
Yeah.
But it constantly evolves. We've went from the 2-speed being king to the close ratio 3-speed being king, and now we're kind of back to now we're teeter-tottering which one's better, a 3-speed or a 2-speed.
Yeah, it just depends on the combo for sure.
It depends on the combo, and so it's still exciting, and it's still there's still new innovative things coming out for the Turbo 400. But it's not that I hate the Glide. It's just that it's
It's just way more over here.
Just way more over here. It's if you want to try something special, the 400 brings that to the party. The Powerglide really doesn't. It's just not as controllable, and you can't do as many things with it, and even the strength.
Yeah,
but
well, he was really. Definitely sounds like he was way ahead of his time.
Oh, way ahead of his time. He made the very first billet aluminum valve body ever. He had this idea that. These are the inherent problems with cast iron valve bodies. We're modifying them to make them work. What if we just start from a clean sheet of paper? Where we don't have to deal with the factory circuitry that GM built, for the pickup truck. Let's just start from a clean sheet of paper and move the fluid where we need it to go in larger volumes than what we had. And that's really what he done. That's where the valve body came from.
So you worked with him until about 2008?
2011.
Okay.
Yeah, 2011. We worked together, and at some point in time, we were trying to merge Extreme Automatics and Griner Engineering, and we just were never able to get it done. He was a picky old guy, and we just couldn't get it done. So I realized at that point in time, we either had to split and I had to go out on my own, or I just never felt confident we were ever going to get it done. So I wanted to move home back to Ohio anyway, so I moved home back to Ohio, and basically we separated that. We're still very good friends.
He's still alive, huh?
No, Steve died, I think it was in 2017, 2018. But one thing that stuck with me is when I was moving out the last day, he said, look, I got to tell you something. I said, what? He said, you have to make some of your own stuff. You have to. He said, you cannot keep buying stuff from me, and you can't keep buying stuff from other people. You have to get into manufacturing some of your own products, because if you don't, it's going to stunt your growth. It's going to be very hard to grow and expand. You got to let some of them ideas in your head out. And that stuck with me, and that stuck with me after we left there, because it was probably 2 years before I bought the first CNC machine.
Okay.
But like I said, he had a big impact on my life, and I don't know what I'd be doing in the transmission business if it went for him.
So when you bought your first CNC machine, did you know what you were going to make, or were you just buying a CNC machine?
I knew the 480 valve body was the one thing I wanted to make. I tried to get Steve involved in it. We designed it together, but we never actually built it. And we actually designed it in 2009. And I just knew that was what I wanted to do. But I didn't, until I was over there, I didn't really know what it was like to CNC stuff. I had the same vision that a lot of people do. You just open a door, you throw a piece of material in and punch a button and a part falls out. Yeah. And believe it or not, that's what a lot of people actually think happened. And so I buy the CNC machine before I really knew what I was doing. So I buy a CNC machine, now I've got it. Okay, I was so unprepared because I couldn't even draw anything.
Yeah, you didn't know what to do.
I did not know what to do. You know what I mean? So I had to start that way. I called Steve up and he's like, "Hey, buddy, figure it out. You've got to learn how to draw something first. You can't draw anything yet. You got the cart in front of the horse." And so I learned how to CAD draw, and then and just went from there. It took me probably 3 months to draw a circle. It took a long time because I wouldn't ask for help.
There really probably wasn't as much information on YouTube back then either.
No, there really wasn't. A Bobcat I think was the first. Actually, it might have been Solid Edge. I think was the first drawing program that I bought, and. I started with that. I started with the free stuff, and but no, YouTube wasn't really a whole lot of. That was in 2012. Yeah, 2012. There wasn't really a lot on YouTube at that time on CAD drawing, so it was just sitting in front of a computer screen for hours, punching buttons and trying to look at their help menus to figure out how to do basic drawings, and so that's really how it all started.
So from the time that they delivered this CNC machine that you didn't know how to use,
correct,
to making your first product that you, like, let's just not even say that you sold but that you made and you're like, this might work. How long did that take?
About 9 months.
All right.
It's about 9 months from the first one that I bought. It was used, and we bought it from, it used to be A&M Soft Seal in Harrison, Ohio.
Okay.
And but the very first product that I ever actually made with the CNC machine was a 204R bell housing adapter, where we would cut the bell off of the 204R and we would adapt it to different models. And it was 2 or 3 years later before we actually, it might have been 4 years later before we actually made the first 480 valve body. And because but that was the first thing we made was adapters. I started making transmission adapters, and but it didn't blossom from there.
Yeah.
And then we went into the 480 valve body. I'd give Steve my word I wouldn't build a 400 valve body, and until which time, he wasn't around or I wasn't affecting him. And then he called me up one day and said, "Hey, I'm not selling valve bodies anymore to any other businesses besides the one I'm dealing with. So I'm just warning you ahead of time. For another 30 days, I'll help supply you, but after that, I won't be able to do it." And
so that was your go ahead.
That was my go ahead to do it. He and that's pretty much how it worked. But it took me about 3 or 4 months, and he still stuck me valve bodies for probably 2 or 3 of those months, and then before we actually had the first 400 valve body that we done, and then we started, and basically the first one we built. It's not an exact copy of Steve's, but it's very similar because we spent a lot of time together. So I already had working knowledge of it. And when we were together, I wanted to make updates to the valve body, and Steve wouldn't. He's like, "Why should we make updates to the valve body? Because we've already got the best valve body."
And he was already kind of checked out of that.
He was already checked out. He was building a good product, but he was collecting his money. The R&D was, there was no research and development. So I mean. They're very similar, but at the same time too, a couple other companies had already made their variations of his valve body. So I feel like I had enough hands on enough ground to where I wasn't actually stepping on his toes.
Yeah.
And
he kind of gave you his blessing.
And he kind of gave me the blessing anyway. So, but then from there it just went on into other things. We work on we're constantly trying to come up with new stuff. You have to, because the valve bodies, we change the valve bodies often. And the reason being is because, and you're aware, I know you're a little aware of the copycat stuff going on. And so, if we continually evolve the valve body and we make it better, and we, as we go, then the people who try to copy your product, they get an old version. You constantly get the old version of the product. So it's important. You just have to evolve the stuff, and so that's what we try to do.
Well, I think the thing in business that, a lot of times, people outside looking in, like, yeah, obviously copycat products and stuff are, a big deal. It sucks. But the thing that they can't copy is you, right?
Correct.
They can't take you.
Nope.
So that is why I think what he said is such great advice, is like, he didn't follow that advice in his later years because he was just ready to be done.
He was ready to be done, yeah.
You're continually evolving, and you're continually, going out there and trying to improve the product. And I think, your business model is similar to ours, of where, you're actually out there using it. You got it in trusted people's hands. Like, obviously one of the reasons that Charlie has one of your transmissions is so we can give you feedback. Right? We have a good working relationship.
Absolutely.
It's no different than any product that we make. Like, it's, I want it out there on cars that are racing. I want feedback. I want to be able to help that customer. And that's how your product gets better. It evolves. It changes. It has to.
It has to. It has to evolve. And like I said, you just have to. You have to do it. I mean, I want to. Like we go back to a few minutes ago. I want to give somebody a big stack of value for their money.
Yeah.
It's why I don't have the cheapest product. So I need to offer something or add some value to it that somebody else doesn't.
Yeah. Well, and that's the difference between, like, at the end of the day, like for us, like, man, we make brackets with holes in them. They're not that, it's not that complicated. It's just a bracket with a hole. And we make 9-inch housings. We do other stuff too, but it's like, man, we didn't invent the 9-inch, right? Like, it's just, we didn't do anything groundbreaking. It's just tweaks. But I think what we are good at is knowing what to do with those holes and giving you positive feedback on how to set the car up, how to, we see enough things, which is the same thing you do. You have enough product out there where you can give real world feedback, especially with all the gear ratios and stuff, available. I think when I'm talking on the phone to people, a lot of times they think there's all this magic in the back of the car, kind of back to the bearded lady thing.
There is.
But when you actually get down and you start talking to them, a lot of times, man, their suspension's pretty close, but you start talking about gear ratios and their starting line ratio and all this stuff, it's like, but that thing's never going to leave the starting line.
No.
You're like, you got so much ratio in this thing, so I think that's a great thing of, I've talked to people that, buy transmissions, they're like, oh, they didn't even bring this up to me, because they didn't know. It's like, well, if you call Extreme Automatics and you're like, I'm building a small tire car and I have this power plant, you could probably tell them pretty close of like, hey, this is what kind of gear ratio you should be looking at.
You do, because, like I said, I service what, like you guys service what you sell. When you sell your stuff, you make yourself available to help the customer, to hold their hand through the process. It's a little bit of a partnership, and I'm the same way too. So most of the customers that we do business with that are heavily into racing, that they do share that feedback. So you kind of learn what won't work and you kind of learn what does work. And so, yeah, I share that information because it's important, because I just like you, I want my customers to be successful.
Yeah.
I like all good deals, don't like bad deals. And if it's a good deal, if the customer has success, then it's a good deal for us and them both.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I do share that information because you're, like you said, it's important. If you have a starting ratio of 10-to-1 and a drag car with a slick, you're going nowhere. And if you do, it's going to flip over in a stop.
Yeah, if it ever does take off, man, it's going to be epic.
It's going to be epic. So, all that stuff's important. And a lot of people don't understand it. A lot of it's important.
Well, I think back to the point of like giving that customer that stack of value. That stack of value is not just in the product; it's in you.
Exactly correct. You just say same as you guys. Same as you guys. But it is in us. But I mean, you just, man, like I said, I kind of feel like the customer's partner until which time, You know what I mean? I just kind of feel that way a little bit.
Yeah, no, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, just hopefully I don't get some of the bill, but
Yeah, I don't want to pay for your stuff.
No,
Yeah,
I don't do it either. But no, I actually enjoy doing it. So I enjoy looking at the combos. It's the fun part of the job for me now. As a guy calls me up and I make this much power and this is what I have, and what would you do? Oh, I love that question because I have a pretty good idea what I would do, and am I 100% right all the time? I don't know if I think I am, but I haven't had anybody call me back and say, hey, I had one guy I suggested one time, and I said, well, here, I'll tell you what, if you don't like the way you try it my way, and if you don't like it, I'll just buy back. I'll buy back and we'll do it your way. He says, man, will you send me an email? I said, yeah, I'll send it to you in an email. I sent it to him in an email, and, guess what? I didn't have to buy it back. It
worked out all right.
I was that confident that it would work for him. And that particular was a 2-speed 400 from a Powerglide. Because he needed more ratio out of his combination. So I knew it would work because we'd already done it. So, because like you guys, I use the stuff, I race with the stuff that we build. And, but yeah, that's the part of the business. That's the part of it I like now, is when is anything challenging, man. The older I get, it has to be more challenging. The cookie cutter stuff isn't fun anymore.
Yeah, and I think too, I enjoy when someone calls, and I try to take a lot of time on the phone with people and get it worked out, and then I really love when they call back and they're like, yeah, man, that worked. Like,
Absolutely.
That's the best, of getting that positive feedback back. Cause man, I don't want to see people struggle. And I think, you're going to struggle some, but I think when you deal with if you want to drag race, you should deal with companies that drag race.
I agree.
And, that they fix some of that. I'm not going to say it's an easy button, but they can definitely get you pointed in the right direction a lot quicker than, like you said, you bought this CNC machine and you stared at it for 9 months, basically, like that.
I couldn't even turn it on. I couldn't even turn it on.
Is that the machine that we have now?
No. The very first one I had was actually, I started with, you guys have one here. I started with a ProtoTrack. I started with a MX3 ProtoTrack.
Okay.
So that was the first CNC machine. I ended up with 2 of those. But that was my first one, and I could turn it on, but I couldn't get anything to work.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? I could roll the handles over with my hands, but I just thought, I tried talking to it. I tried all kinds of it just
clap on, clap off.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it was a floppy disk and floppy disk. I mean, once I learned how to draw enough to make a program to put in it, then I couldn't. How do I communicate? So I call around, ask anybody I could find out to find. I ended up buying a 3.5-inch floppy disk thing I could plug into my computer to actually put the program on it. And so, yeah, I mean, it was an experience. But I made a lot of stuff with a mill. I mean, with a mill like that.
That's cool.
And the one that you guys have was my 4th one. That was the 4th machine that I had.
Okay.
I had a Cincinnati Millicron machine, which if you're watching, don't ever buy one of those. But no, I had an old Cincinnati Millicron machine that I had for a little while, and then I had a Makino for a short time. And then the VF1 Haas was the first Haas that I got. That one was the second Haas. And then I've gotten three more since then.
Yeah, you got CNC machines everywhere up there.
I do now, yeah. I'm just out of power. I'd have another one. I really would like to have a dedicated 5-axis. I have a 5-axis machine, but it's with a trunnion. I'd like to have a dedicated 5-axis that does nothing but 5-axis.
Pretty amazing, Lonnie, that you went from, let's say, so that was 2012.
That was 2012, yeah.
Yeah, not even knowing how to turn the thing on.
Yeah.
And now, at 2024, you're wanting a dedicated 5-axis machine. You're all self-taught. I mean, I know people have helped you along the way,
right.
but you're pretty much self-taught.
Absolutely, yes.
And, man, what an accomplishment. You should be proud of that. That's cool.
To me, it didn't happen fast enough. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I've had other people say, man, I didn't go to school on how to draw. I mean, I did had what for the short time I was at University of Cincinnati, I did start the tip of the iceberg of the engineering, but not, but for the most part, yeah, it's pretty much been developed by myself.
Yeah.
But now a lot of people say that to me, but to me it just seems like it took me too long to do it. It's been 12 years. I mean, it's shouldn't have been that long. It should have been done in 5.
Yeah.
But I like what I do. This is the path I chose, and that's the one I'm going to ride right off into the sunset.
That's cool.
But I like what I do, and I like challenging stuff. So
yeah, with what you guys are doing now, you still build some transmissions, but your primary deal is just the parts.
It's just making new stuff. I've got 2 guys that run the CNC machines, and I couldn't do anything without my guys, man. I mean, like I said, they deserve more credit than I do. But what I've been doing is designing parts and making new stuff, and then evolving, trying to evolve. If we find out that. It's like the internal dump. That was my job. I took that. That was my job, is to figure out, okay, how can we effectively do this internal dump that we can that will work the same every time. And so that's kind of the stuff that I'm actually doing on the day to day. And I do build transmissions, but more of the design stuff and ideas, and let my creativity loose. I do more of that than anything.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, yeah, I mean, there's so much technology and controlling the charge pressure of the trans and all the circuitry that's in a 400. Like, I mean, there's definitely been. I mean, that's where I'm not gonna say all the ET is found, but there's a lot of working together with all the new EFIs and stuff.
Right.
And I think if we kind of touch back to, racing when you're first putting them standalones on a Buick to now all the things that we can control, I think it's pretty easy to get lost in the sauce just because of, I mean, man, it's pretty unreal what we can control.
Oh, it's unbelievable, and I mean, it's just like the charge circuit. I mean, the charge circuit can take a car that you can't get down a racetrack, and if you can learn how to control it, you can take that same car with that converter and get it down a racetrack that you couldn't without a converter change.
Yeah,
but everything's like you said, technology is just unbelievable. You can do anything if you can think of it. You can do it. And you're right. Back in the '90s, we couldn't do anything. I mean, our data log was still on a laptop. The laptop had to ride in the car with you to get a data log.
All right.
Yeah, and you could only pick 6 items. So it's like a Gen 7 or an old XFI. I mean, you get 6 items that had to be data logged in the laptop.
And that was it.
That was it.
Yeah, 6 was it.
That was it. I mean, there was actually companies at that time that were making laptop stands, so you could strap your laptop in the car from the driver's seat like a police car, and they would bolt to the one of the seat mounts. And so you'd be driving down the road, and I mean, you'd have this laptop right here, and so you'd stage your car, and you have to reach over and hit the enter button
to make it the data log. Yeah.
So no, it's changed a lot. I mean, it's definitely changed a lot, but a lot of it, man. I tell you, a lot of it's. I don't know how we didn't. I don't know how we did. If we'd done without it.
Yeah.
I don't know how we did without it back then.
Yeah, well, because like after you have it, you can't. You can't go back to not having it. And you're like, why didn't we figure this out sooner? This is so.
It's so crazy. It's like somebody asked me a couple weeks ago. They said, "Well, what was your favorite engine management back in the day?" I had actually traded an XFI for a Motec M48. And I thought, man, I get this thing, and it's got internal data logging and all this stuff that, at that time was like, wow.
This is groundbreaking.
This is groundbreaking, and not only can I data log 6, but I can data log 12 things, and then I look at that M48 today compared to any engine management system out there now, and I mean, it's a dinosaur. It's really amazing. It's amazing how far the sport's come, and the cars make so much power now. It's way different.
Yeah, horsepower is so easy.
It's easy. I remember when you would eclipse 1,000 horsepower. I'm gonna go back as far as say 10, 15 years ago. Man, you were bringing it. Now, I mean, a guy can go to the junkyard and buy something and slap it together and make that.
Well, and I think about that a lot. That the average person that watches some of this stuff and they may race a little bit or whatever. I don't think they really realize the horsepower capabilities of a lot of these combos. You know, like if we take our big block nitrous motor for example, like everybody sees how big it is. They're like, man, it's 750 cubic inch. Like that's a monster. It is, but it actually really doesn't make that much horsepower. Like, I mean, it does well, but 20 probably makes 2300 when everything's all systems are go.
Right.
But in comparison with like a twin turbo Hemi, that thing can make 4,000 plus.
Exactly.
So you're talking 4,000 horsepower. You know what I mean? Like that's it. I mean that, like you said, it just 20 years ago, maybe a little longer, but it's like 1,000 was like you were king dingling.
You're bringing it. Yeah, you're bringing it. I mean, in an NA engine at 1,000 horsepower, I mean, you were somebody special.
Yeah.
I mean, you were it. But yeah, I mean, 1,000 horsepower now, it's unbelievable. I mean, I remember if you had a street car that ran the 11s, you had. I mean, you really had a hot rod.
Yeah.
Now, if your street car's not, I mean, you got to run in the 8s to get that done now.
A lot of it's the Buick's fault.
Yes,
because of all the turbochargers.
It is. It is. And like I said, I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the fact that a lot of people that don't, if you don't know it, it was the Buick Grand National. I mean, that really truly brought forced induction and fuel injection to the masses.
So your car now that you have, Lonnie has a GNX, which I'm not a. I love it because it's so. What makes that rare?
It's a GSX.
GSX.
Yeah,
okay.
GSX. Yeah. It's 1970. In 1970, the Stage 1 that was the first year for the 455 Stage 1, which was comparable to an LS6 Chevelle or a Hemi Cuda, and they just low production numbers. They didn't sell a whole lot of them, and then the color, it's the green. It's not actually the real GSX green. It's a little bit different green now, but I mean, it just makes.
But that car was green from the factory.
That car was green from the factory, yeah. It makes it it makes it rare because of production numbers. It's like the L88 Corvette. I mean, they made several Corvettes in '66, I think it was, but they didn't make very many L88 Corvettes, and so the GSX is that it was GS experimental. Is what the X stood for, and so they just didn't make many of them.
So how long did that have a regular Buick motor in it?
Of course, my cousin owned the car up until, technically speaking, this year, but it had a Buick engine in it till 2000. I'm gonna say 2008.
Was it a nitrous motor then?
It was naturally aspirated, and then it was a nitrous. It was a nitrous motor.
Nitrous Buick.
Yeah, nitrous Buick.
Probably not many of them out there.
No. The matter of fact, the Buick guys at that time hated nitrous. Just hated it. But it was nitrous up until then in 08, I think it was 08. It actually was a 565 big block Chevy. They started racing the car, and as the Buick, if we tore the Buick up, we just couldn't get parts. And so they converted it to a 565 big block Chevy, which was in the car up until 2000. When did I start racing it? 2013.
That's when you started driving it?
I started driving it. I actually drove it with the Buick in it, and then Vern drove it for a while, and then, of course, Justin drove it for a while. So, but 2013, I started driving it. I was looking for a race car. And Justin wasn't able to drive anymore. So he called me up. He says, man, let's just come up and get my car. I got a truck. I got a trailer. My car's sitting there in the barn. And just when you're done with it, just give it back the way it was. So I started racing it in 13. And first time I'd ever had any experience with nitrous whatsoever. And then Cheeseburger, my first outing, he's got me scared to death. I'm getting, because I'm petrified of fire, just petrified.
Yeah.
And so Cheeseburger, we go up to Kill Care for the first time, and Cheeseburger, he's telling me, he's like, now listen, don't pedal the car. If the car spins, don't pedal. I said, well, what happens if I pedal? He's like, there'll be a big fire.
There'll be a big fire.
There's going to be a big fire. It'll backfire through the carburetor, and with the nitrous spraying, and it will probably catch on fire. So, the first time I let the button go in this car, I've only been in NA cars, or turbo, never been in, I remember letting the button go, and this thing hits like a sledgehammer. Nothing I was expecting.
Yeah.
And we get on down the track, and the whole time, I'm sitting, man, I can't pedal this car because it will catch on fire.
Yeah, I'm gonna die.
Yeah. But it was really funny. So yeah, Jay, he helped me out my first couple outings with the big block car. But that's how the nitrous. That's how we started with the nitrous, and then we ended up tearing the 12 bolt up again, and then the next year it was a 496. That was a 496, and so the next year, 2015, it took us about half the year to figure out how to get the car to go straight. But when we started getting the car to go straight, it started going pretty fast. We started to win. Well, at the end of the year, I have the bug at this point. So this is 2015. 2016, I decided I want to go fast. So I ended up building a 568 big block, and we converted from carbureted with a plate to fuel injected dry shot. And everybody told me how crazy I was. Oh, I can't believe you're going to do that. And then we raced 10 events that year, and we won 8. And the only guy I couldn't get around was John Pryor. He put me on the trailer and final twice.
Yeah, John's good.
Yeah, he good guy. And but anyways, I love the nitrous, and I loved it. But and then from there, it ended up going to a body shop. We decided we went to Bowling Green on the 11th event of the year, and by that time we were feeling pretty cocky because we won 8 to 10 events, so we were doing pretty good. And we go down there, and I remember second or third round at a race at Bowling Green, man, I let the button go, and I watched this car just disappear. I am just ready to just put the smack on this guy. And as we approached the finish line, I see Adam Preston just mosey his turbo car right on around me, put a car on me at the finish line. So we left there, and we're coming back from Bowling Green. I was like, "That's it, man. We just got to go turbo. We just can't. We can't." I called Charlie Buck, and I said, "Charlie," I said, "I need to make more power." And he said, "Well, how much you spraying?" And I told him the jet ahead. He said, "Well, man, you're spraying about 770. I don't think we can ingest any more nitrous in that engine."
Yeah. The nitrous car there's a formula that you can basically, based on its cubic inch, how many pounds per hour that motor will ingest.
Yeah.
Which a lot of times people say, like, just spray it harder. Well, there comes a point where you literally can't.
It just backs up the intake.
Yeah, it just won't ingest any more nitrous.
Yeah, so I'm talking to him on the phone because, man, he always treated us good. He really did. And he said, "I don't think we can get any more nitrous in the engine." And he said, "But we'll just build a 632. We'll just build a bigger engine, maybe 632, maybe a 650." I did not want to get out of 24 degree stuff. I wanted standard bore spacing, so maybe it was 632.
Probably 632 then. Yeah.
And he thought we could do that. And I get off the phone with him. I'm thinking, man, I'm not building another engine. This thing, it was painful building this one.
Yeah.
Because of the expense.
Well, and that's why nitrous engines get bigger they obviously make a little bit more NA power, but the idea is they have to get bigger so that they can ingest more nitrous. There's no other way around it.
No other way around it, yeah.
That's why they are the way they are.
Yeah, and of course I fell back on my roots. I'd always been a turbo guy. And so I thought, you know what, we'll just turbocharge this thing. And so that's pretty much what we did. We took the 568 and we ended up putting a 118 turbo on it. And then when we got it done, it took way too long to get it done. It was about a 3-year process. At that time, no prep racing was really starting to come around. But at that point in time, there were no big block force induction in small tire. You couldn't nitrous cars only. You couldn't run. They had implemented some type of a rule, and so the big block cars had to run unlimited. Unlimited was big tire. Well, I've got a small tire ladder bar full frame car that weighs 3,500 pounds. So I didn't feel like we could be competitive. So decided to sell the big block and then go small block. And as soon as we got the small block in the car, they opened it up to tire size only. So that's pretty much it on the green car. It's how it become LS to this day.
Yeah, it's got LS twin turbo in it now, which you guys have probably seen. I mean, it's been on our YouTube channel a little bit. So.
Yeah. I think you guys had it on there, but it. Just love the car. I'm stuck with it.
It's cool.
It's kind of a cool car to me anyway.
So what? All right, to kind of go back to extreme automatics to kind of wrap everything up in a bow. What's the future look like for that? What are you excited about?
Man, shifter. I mean, that thing's kicked my butt. But I mean, we're probably. I'm going to say 3 or 4 weeks. We'll actually have the parts made to actually put the first real shifter together. Yeah. Because I'm actually doing you're getting one of the first ones too, so
we'll be a guinea pig on the shifter.
But that's I'm probably the most excited about because it's been a long drawn out process that should have been done 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah. No, you got some stuff that, we're just talking about a shifter, but I've seen what it's going to look like, what the design of it. And, you can only do so much with the design, but there's a few things that I think, are really cool that, nobody else is really like. It's like bits and pieces from everybody. That's kind of how you end up designing the parts. Is you take a little bit from what you like, and then it kind of ends up in this thing. And
it does. The main thing for me was that it started with the green car. Being going 2-speed, 3-speed clean neutral between it and the Mustang. And what hit me is during that process, I ended up buying 5 shifters. And so we thought, man, this is just nuts. Same car, different, change shift patterns. And so for us is, why can't this thing be convertible? Why can't we just put gate plates in it and be able to change a shift pattern without removing the shifter from the car? And so that's what actually fueled the whole thing, is that, I'd bought 5 shifters, and the shifters I bought were good shifters. But I didn't want to have to go through the crap of crawling in a car with the monkey cage in it and taking the shifter out. And, now I can't use the cable that I had because I've changed shifters. And so that was what, that's one thing that we like about the shifter, is that, you buy one shifter and you basically can buy gate plates for whatever shift pattern you want. So you don't have to buy another shifter.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, you guys did it with Charlie. You guys had to buy another shifter with Charlie to change, shift patterns.
Yeah.
And so, and that's what we think, we're the most proud of that, is because we spent the time to get it done.
Yeah, it's a lot of design work. Even like our parts are pretty simple, because we're making chassis parts. And even design time on that's pretty long. But, just for what you're doing, like design of valve bodies, all the fluid passages, this shifter, like, dude, there's a lot of design work and stuff like that.
There is a lot of design work, but the shifter, I have to give the credit to Jeff Zirkle. I actually had started getting above my skill level. And Jeff took an interest in it, and then he took what I had and took it to a whole different level. And thought of stuff that I didn't think about. The stuff, the movement of the shifter handle. The shifter I have now, I have to really monkey with. Once I go forward, I have to really monkey with it to get it back into. And so, we set the shifter up to where once you get through all the gears, we have a way to bring it all the way back to neutral with a single lever squeeze, without having to push a button, squeeze, and let go. And it's just the operation of the shifter from the driver's seat. So you don't have to look at the shifter to see where you're at. So it's little stuff like that we thought that we did that I thought that Jeff took to another level. Something I didn't think about.
Yeah.
And like I said, that we hope we think it'll be a great product. We really.
Well,
do.
it makes sense. I think a lot of times what I'm learning now, we just had a team meeting about this earlier, is there's a lot of great people that we partner with that make similar parts to us, but at a certain point, you have to just start bringing everything in-house, because, like, you have your customer base that want to buy product from you, right? And, sometimes it just doesn't make sense anymore to push them somewhere else where, we have a lot of great vendors, but, sometimes there's vendors you have issues with.
That's correct.
And that customer doesn't care if you're having issues with that vendor. They bought that product from you.
Correct.
So now, like, as we're kind of going down the manufacturing journey, it's, I understand why a lot of companies get to where, and they only sell their own stuff because they just don't want to deal with, other stuff. It makes sense, and for you, it's like, I know you still sell quite a bit of full transmissions. You do. So, like, why not have a shifter that you could sell to that person?
You have to. You hit the nail on the head. Production. Even I run into in-house production problems. But the thing about it is I can work those problems out. I can't work out somebody else's production problems.
Yeah.
I can't work out somebody else's quality control. But if you bring those things in-house, it also gives you a little bit of edge on your competition as well, because you can evolve that product and you can make changes on the fly. If I call someone else and I buy 100 of something and I get 10 into it and say, man, this really needs to be changed, I still have 90 more parts on the shelf that still have to be sold. So what do you do at that point? Do you sell the 90 parts that really need to change to the customer anyway, wait till you get to or do you throw them in the garbage? You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's what I like, being able to make changes and improve product on the fly, versus getting 100 deep and realizing that there's a problem or we do need to make a change to improve the product. And so bringing things in-house, I don't ever see as a negative.
No, agreed.
It's definitely positive.
Well, and even if you get overwhelmed with your own production, and you need to send some stuff out just to help you out,
you can, yes.
That's okay because you've already worked it out. It's not like, you already know this design is going to work. It's all good.
Yeah.
It's. I think for what we do, we're always rapidly prototyping stuff in the field. That's just what it is.
Right.
You're going to give me that shifter, and I'm going to shift it,
yes.
and then I'm going to tell you what I don't like, and you might change something based off what I say, or I might get it, and I might Lonnie, you nailed it.
Exactly, buddy. That's how it works. You know what I mean? If that's exactly how it works. If you're 10 into something and or there needs to be a change or you need to make an addition, if you make your own product, you can.
Yeah.
And that's what I've learned. So I try to make as much as I possibly can. I cannot make everything, and you guys will find out you can't make everything either.
No, you can't.
But you can make a real high percentage of your own stuff, and it just works better that way. And when you make as much as you can, it works better that way.
That's cool. So you're working on that. That's kind of, and then I'm sure you have other things that you're working on.
Oh man, there's I've got the Powerglide valve body. That I've had that thing. I'm not even going to make an excuse. It's been about 5 years. That thing should have already been out and available. I've just been so busy with everything else, I haven't done it. That is absolutely, I will have that done by the end of the year.
Yeah.
The shifter is going to be in front of it though, but yeah, that will be done by the end of the year. And we're working on some other stuff too. But I mean, those two are projects that I've had that I've let go on way too long.
Well, and I will say, man, your guys' valve bodies, I get, I've driven a few different cars,
yeah.
and there's always intricacies about it. But man, your valve body's fast. It's fast. It gets me in trouble sometimes.
And if we can make it faster, we will. And that's, like I said, that's a difference between somebody who can make, or a company who can make changes to the product, on demand, versus somebody who takes the product and sends it overseas and says make it.
Well, I honestly, even in our car, man, if you make it any faster, and I'm kind of worried we're getting ready to put Charlie on radials, so it's going to 60 foot a lot harder than what we are now.
Yes.
So it's going to react faster.
It's going to react faster.
So I'm kind of worried about it because right now, with the way the car's wired, is it's wired direct to to make it faster.
Right.
But man, we might have to put it through the ECU to tame her down a little bit.
You can put it through the ECU and put delay in it, because I actually, in the Mustang, when they went to the 500 Pro Tree, I had to run a delay box in the Mustang because the Mustang reacted so fast. I was a red light guy.
Yeah.
So I'd always even on a Pro Tree, I had to run delay in the Mustang to keep from red lighting.
Yeah.
And still had a red light or two.
Yeah.
But yeah, you could.
Which for what we're doing now, most of the time I'm on a flashlight or whatever, so it doesn't, it doesn't really matter. But when you're playing the Pro Tree game and how deep or shallow you stage the car,
and you're trying to bang the tree,
yeah. So
you can.
And we got some 60-foot goals that if it does it, it's like, man, that thing's gonna leave the starting line. So it might be.
Brad was telling me about it, and that's that'll be a big deal.
Yeah, he'll have to tame me down, but. It's cool, and obviously you've been racing your car a little bit, but business kind of comes first. So
it has to come first. I mean, because the business is what pays for the other stuff you want to do. And I've got 5 other guys that work for me that I have an obligation to make sure that they're taken care of. Yeah, and they like to see me do well too. But like I said, I can't do anything without them. So I mean, they're. If they all left tomorrow, it would be like a funeral for me. So we're like a family, and like I said, my guys deserve more of the credit than I do. Yeah, I'm the face, but they're the engine behind the whole thing.
No, and anytime we go up there, man, you guys are super they're all super excited. Yeah, great people, man, and you got to have that, why do this? You could go do something else, right? It's
exactly, yeah. I mean, they kind of feel like movie stars sometimes, like I said, it just
when Rick comes in with the camera,
Rick comes in with the camera, or when Jimmy Dale was over there, I mean, they just feel like, oh wow, I mean, if it had been Brad Pitt walked in the place, they wouldn't have been any more excited, you know what I mean? So
I mean, I guess Jimmy Dale does kind of look like Brad Pitt,
yeah, they do kind of look like each other. Yeah, not to mention there might be family. But no, they're a good bunch of guys.
That's cool. Well, you got any closing statements, closing thoughts?
Man, I don't know. I think I've covered about everything. I mean, it's very rare that I don't have something to say, but I think we got it all.
Yeah, you try to when we do these, I try to bounce around a bit because I want people to know like about you. You know what I mean? Not just your business, not just about this. It's important to kind of grab it all.
Yeah, just an old guy overweight. That's what it is.
No, but from us to you, like, man, we really appreciate everything you do for us, and you keep us out there racing, and you don't have to do everything you do for us, but you do, and your customer service is, it's incredible, really, and I know that you treat everyone else just like you treat us. Like I've watched you do it.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really big thing to hang your hat on.
Man, I will tell you one thing that I will add is that, man, I am so glad that when I could not get that Mustang down a racetrack, that I actually called you up and asked for help, because I'll tell you, you and Brad have become good friends of mine. And like I said, it's one thing. It's you have those things in life that's a turning point. And here I lived in the same city with you guys, and you guys are a good bunch of guys. I mean, I'm just glad I made that phone call, because we all became to be friends because of it. And I think that's great when something like that happens. Really
it works out all right.
Yeah, it worked out pretty good. It really did.
Well, cool. Well, if you haven't, please go to Lonnie's page, just Extreme Automatics. He doesn't have a YouTube, so you just have to look at his YouTube through, look at him through our YouTube. But Extreme Automatics. He's got a website, all that stuff. If you have transmission questions, please buy something from him and just don't call him with questions. But if you're in the market for, a Turbo 400, he's got multiple different stages. It doesn't have to be a 3-speed with a lockup. If you want that, he can do it.
I could do it, yeah.
Yeah, but he has multiple different options to kind of get your foot in the door. And, he won't oversell you on what you don't need. He's going to sell you what you need.
Yeah, I like good deals. So, I don't want to say nothing you don't need.
Yeah, most people probably don't need a 3-speed with a lockup.
No. That's probably the least common one that they need right there.
Yeah. So, but if you wonder why Charlie sounds like it's got 6 gears going down the racetrack, that's Lonnie. Yeah, it does sound cool when it's.
Oh, it does cool. I like to hear that big block up there tight. Not a lot of shift drops. It's actually pretty cool.
It is cool. But, we appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching. As always, like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you later.